All right. Um, I am just up late again, and I found this video, as you can see in the little thing right here. Amazing Lucas posted a video, but I also found another video of an actual attorney who um, commented on this. Hang on a second. I toss the mouse up here so I can have an easier switch over. As Tariq Nasheed would say, bear with me 1 second, family. Probably should have prepared a little bit more, but I wanted to hurry up and do this so I could go ahead and uh, just get to it. It's not even like I have a big audience anyway. All right, so let's react to. Let's do. I was gonna say Amazing Lucas. No, let me do. Oh, it still won't do it. All right, that's cool. Let me see if I can switch screens. Yes, I can. Ooh, hang on. I just saw a new option. Also share tab audio. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, entire screen window. Sorry, I'm kind of learning this on the fly. Not that I have anybody here to really critique, but it is what it is. Also share system audio. Nope, don't want to do that. All right, we'll go with that. All right, I'm gonna do this explosive new turn, share. All right, here we go. This is a law and crime video. They usually like to kind of talk about the case and bring on a guest. I'm not really gonna get into all that, just because sometimes their guests we don't have anything quality or qualitative to say. But they always usually give a nice little breakdown. So let's see.
In the Karmelo Anthony murder trial, the jury will soon decide the fate of the former track athlete accused of fatally stabbing a fellow competitor at a Texas track meet. Was it murder or self-defense? We're inside the courtroom with details on the defense's final witness and the unexpected moment that unfolded just before the defense rested its case. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. All right, hey guys, real quick before we get to the big.
Yeah, so if you want to check this site out, I usually talk about them, or I don't say I talk about them. I watch them a lot. Law and Crime, great channel. If you just want sort of like a little breakdown as to like they don't get too heavy in a certain law, but they do bring on attorneys and stuff who kind of talk about certain aspects and this, that, and the other. They don't really get too heavy into it, but great channel, Law and Crime. Check them out.
Elements in this trial today. I need to tell you about this app called Upside. It gets you cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, just certain and you
God, I hate ads. Anybody else know the
story from the witness?
Like the most annoying thing.
Karmelo Anthony will not give us his side of the story from the witness stand. We did wonder if the defendant, who is facing a charge of first-degree murder, would testify at his own murder trial, and today we learned that is not going to happen. The defense just rested after calling 6 witnesses over the course of 2 days. Now, the state had called 21 witnesses when they presented their case. Tomorrow, both sides will deliver their closing arguments, and then it will be up to the jury to decide the verdict in one of the most high-profile and emotionally charged trials that we have seen this year. Joining us now, just was inside the courtroom, now outside to talk with us, Cody Thomas of Court TV. Thanks for sticking with us again on this one. Take us.
So this guy, I'll back it up a little bit. This guy is at the trial. He's kind of reporting live. He talked about the surveillance video. I don't know if I'm going to put that reaction up here for documentative purposes, but he talked about the surveillance video. I know there's another video of that guy who's like an alleged, offender. You got his version of events. Neither one of them seem to contradict each other, but one, like this guy kind of says like, oh, you really can't see much and blah, blah, blah. Then the convicted offender or alleged offender, I don't know. I saw a video on it, but I listened to the video. Allegedly they showed receipts, but whatever. Sorry, I got some of my allegedly this guy, the essay guy, he had a whole more detail, like, oh, you could see everything and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. But anyway, this guy is a live correspondent, represents, is working for law and crime, allegedly, or maybe just a correspondent. I don't know. But he seemed to have a little detailed breakdown as to what he saw on the tape. And again, check out Law and Crime. You can see what he has to say on that. I'll let you guys do on your own. I'm not gonna do all the work for you.
Court TV. Thanks for sticking with us again on this one. Take us inside the moment that the defense rested in this case.
Yeah, Chris. So, they called 3 witnesses during the Saturday session. They did do court on the weekend 2 days ago. 3 witnesses then. They came in today, did 3 witnesses this morning. And then, of course, we go on our lunch break. Just a regular old hour and 15-minute lunch break. I pop out here, do some television, go back in. And, mind you, Chris, we've talked about this. This judge has been very prompt. We were supposed to be back in at 12:30 p.m. local time, Central Time here in McKinney, Texas. So we get back in there, 12:35. All right, 10 minutes, 15 minutes go by. And so, all right, half an hour goes by. Long story short, Chris, we end up waiting for an hour and 45 minutes before something happens. And as we're sitting there, the only people we see go inside this courtroom are the Anthony family, his parents. And so, of course, the speculation starts running. Are they negotiating a plea deal? Is he going to testify? What are we waiting for? Because this is abnormal. This judge has been very prompt. He's been very on time and very, a stickler about being inside the courtroom when he says to be inside. And so we get back in there. We're, awaiting this big imminent moment, what it might be. And then the defense says they're resting. No colloquy, no asking if he's going to testify and him responding or anything like that. We didn't hear him speak. But the defense is now rested. The state not putting on a rebuttal. The state rests. So that's where we're at now, Chris. And then the jury will have the case tomorrow, of course.
That's really strange that the state didn't offer a rebuttal. Usually in things like this, the state will be like, oh, okay, so it usually goes, prosecution makes their case, defense responds to it, then the prosecution will come back, respond to that, and then the defense will have, I guess, another at bat at it, or sometimes like for Ahmaud Arbery, it was like, okay, the prosecution can respond to the defense's case, and then they'll go into closing arguments. That's how I understand it. So that is really strange that the prosecution or the state would say something, the defense would counter, with their version of events, and then everyone kind of moves forward. That really is strange. Again, I wonder what's really going on inside the court case, because as I've learned in the Michael Jackson trial via Tom Mesereau, shout out to Tom Mesereau, what goes on in the courtroom and what actually makes it out to the news isn't always the same, right? Because he talked about how the prosecution would say a bunch of stuff about Michael Jackson, and then all the reporters would run out of the room and go report it like, oh, this is what Michael's being accused of. Michael's going to jail. This is pretty much open and shut case. It's kind of like what's going on with Karmelo Anthony. It's like, oh, this is what he's being accused of. Yeah, he's going to jail. Like, you guys have seen the videos on that. But for the prosecution not to rebut the defense, that is very telling. I've already been on, I make no bones about it. I'm already on Karmelo's side on this because there's just other details about this that I noticed. I'm just go ahead and say it. And being a black man, I know these scenarios where it looks one way, everyone takes certain things and run with it, and then it's completely not that. So I don't know, but anyway, we'll let this guy finish. This is very interesting that the defense didn't, or the prosecution didn't rebut.
Following closing arguments in the jury instruction, and then they'll get the case and start deliberating. And the judge also pointed out that they will be sequestered, meaning they will not be able to go home for the duration of this deliberation period. They'll deliberate as late as 10 or 11 p.m. the judge said, and then if they decide to call it quits, they go back to a hotel, to which the hotel's televisions and phones have been removed out, so they can't have access to news stories and things like this. So it'll be a very interesting thing, Chris. But it was definitely a surprising moment that they rested pretty early. We expected this trial to go through Friday or Saturday, which it still could. We don't know how long those deliberations could be, but here we are on Monday, just the fourth day of testimony, and both sides have already rested.
Yeah, I think it was roughly 21 witnesses for the prosecution, and it was over like 2.5 days that they presented their case. And then you have a total of 6 witnesses for the defense. They started to present their side of the story on Saturday in the afternoon. And then here we are. I mean, we're recording this just before 3 o'clock Central Time, and they're done. What stood out to you today? I know they called a couple of track athletes to the stand as well as a police officer. Walk us through one of these final witnesses and what they mean for the defense in this case.
I'm the founder of
Again, 3 witnesses here, Chris. The police officer was really short. It was only 10 or 15 minutes. And the point that he pretty much made is that it is not illegal to carry a 5.5 or below a 5.5 inch blade knife into a stadium. While it might be, against school policy, it's not criminally illegal. The blade has to be less than 5.5.
There you go. You heard it here first. What Karmelo did having the knife on him was not illegal. And again, he said it was a stadium. It wasn't a school. So can we please stop talking about that? Karmelo Anthony did not break the law by having a knife on him. Right. And I think, and again, this was already said in the I'm not deposition, but when they were gathering all the information for the case, they already said this was not at a high school. The location was not in a high school. Like, that's why the guy just said, he's like, it wasn't illegal that he had that in the stadium. Why didn't he say the high school? Because it was not at a high school. I believe it was at actually, I don't know where it was, but it wasn't a high school. So yeah, Karmelo was not breaking the law by having that on him. So all you people in the comment section running around talking about, well, why does he have a knife at a high school event? He didn't, and he did not break the law, and no, he doesn't deserve jail time for it. And again, it's Texas. Like, this says, again, it's the same state that wants to carry, automatic machine guns to go get coffee at Starbucks. Like, stop it. Talking about a 3-inch blade. Get out of my face. Whoops, wrong button.
Benches, though. So he pointed that out, and that was pretty much the crux of his testimony. But one of the witnesses today, Chris, one of those athletes who was there, was testifying, of course, about the rain. Everything we've heard about this rain, and as part of the defense narrative as to why Karmelo was under that tent, trying to get out of the rain, which makes sense. He talked about when the rain started, him, Karmelo, and like 2 or 3 other students went to the dugout, a baseball dugout that's right behind the stadium, to get out of the rain. He said they were only there for a few minutes before a coach came and told them they couldn't hang out there. And then as they were walking back from the dugout, this student says that his coach, he was on the 4x1 relay, told them to go warming up. And so they all go there, him, Karmelo, and everybody else go down to the field to start warming up. And he says, they're doing their thing, stretching out, running up and down the track.
Y'all catch that? He said him and Karmelo went to the place to start warming up. So Karmelo was not there to watch. Karmelo was participating in the track meet. See, these are the details you got to pay attention to. Now, this guy could be wrong, but let's just go with that. All right, let's go with it. Because again, this isn't a YouTuber necessarily. This is a correspondent reporting on a actual event.
Just warming their legs up and everything. And then he says he sees Karmelo go up into the stands. And him and Karmelo, he knows him. He's known him for a while. That's his friend on the track team, a teammate. And then he says he's out there warming up, and he starts hearing some sort of commotion under the memorial tent. And so he says, he's not quite sure what was going on. Was it, people that knew each other horsing around? Was it, a fight about to break out? He just wasn't sure, but it was loud enough and enough commotion to be concerned. And then he eventually saw Karmelo, and he described it as.
And remember, this is eyewitness testimony. All right, we just saw the other video where it was like, a witness on the stand said it, therefore it's gospel. Right. And I already told you that that's not always the case, but according to this guy, now we got to believe that this is an eyewitness who's saying that Karmelo went over there, invited. He saw somebody he knew. He actually was at the track meet. He was participating. According to this eyewitness, who's also a track runner. So according to some people on the internet, that's all we need here, right? So Karmelo wasn't trespassing. Karmelo was legal to have the knife. See, this is starting to look a whole lot different than what these comment sections are looking like. This is why I'm doing these videos now. I'm not letting it slide.
Sort of being kind of surrounded in his initial police report, his police interrogation, the answers he gave police once this happened. He described it as Karmelo as being surrounded. So he walks us through how he was walking towards the bleachers from the grass, about the 40-yard line he said he was on, towards the bleachers, just to see what was going on. He's turning back to see if his teammates are realizing what's going on. And then he sees, a bunch of students scatter. That was his testimony. And that was, of course, the moment that the stabbing happened. Now, under cross-examination, the prosecutor hopped up and showed that surveillance video yet again. And he kind of challenged what the kid was saying. The surveillance video had all kinds of angles. We have the angle on what happened, and then we have the angle that we actually saw of where this kid was on the field warming up. And they're playing the video, and it gets to the point, and the prosecutor literally goes, boom, this is the stabbing right here, and then he paused it. And then it shows the kid and another collection of runners not walking towards the stadium. So pretty much challenging what the kid had said. And then he talked about how he had interviewed the kid, weeks before pre-trial. And he said when he showed him that video, the kid agrees that, some of his accounts didn't line up. Some of them were just plain wrong. And the kid agreed to that on the stand. So that was very interesting. And then, of course, on redirect, the defense comes back and says, well, if I told you that, the timestamps of these two angles of the video didn't match up, you would have, no idea of that. And the kid obviously, agreed to that. He's like, I don't know about the timestamps, but that came up earlier in the trial because they said the syncs were off a few seconds. So that's something that the jury is going to have to weigh here, Chris. But that's
excellent jury. That's excellent lawyering, both prosecution and defense. That's cool. I'm actually glad to hear that. That's why I kind of let it play, because I was like, oh, wait a minute. So the prosecution got them caught up, and then on redirect, they were like, oh, actually no, because this. But I don't know. Without having been in the courtroom and seeing that, that's hard to say who really won that battle. But that's very interesting. But that's good. Right, you gotta dismantle the witness's claim, and then someone has to back it up. Yeah, that's good. I would have liked to be in the courtroom to hear that back and forth.
That was the most powerful moment to me today, as far as this student testifying his account, the prosecutor, challenging that account, but then the defense coming back and being like, well, this might be a couple of seconds off anyway.
Yeah, and you go back to that video because it's surveillance video, right? From kind of perched up on the top of the stands of this football stadium. I know you've seen it. It hasn't been released to the public. And it like at the time that it was presented, which I think was on the first day of this trial by the state, like we were talking about it not being the most like compelling video because you don't really see a lot. But here we are so many days later. And that is something that for someone who could be a very important witness to the defense, prosecutors were able to pull that video up once again that the jury's already familiar with and actually point this witness out and say, and they're arguing that he actually maybe didn't see things the way that he thought he did.
Absolutely. And to your point, Chris, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the video. It looks very grainy like a gas station video because it's very wide angle. And when you zoom in, you're going to lose quality. You can kind of make out what's going on, but it still is not the best quality video to be presenting. But at the same time, there are identifiable characters that the prosecution has made very known that they have talked about this weeks before this trial. So they've walked through, this student understood, and not only this student, but other students as well, have walked through the key players. And then we have forensic video analyst on the first day that, had the different characters spotlighted in the video. So they made sense of what was really going on. But yeah, you would imagine, Chris, it seems like the prosecution had a better relationship with one of the defense's witnesses. So it's a very interesting thing to see play out and then have the defense case end this abruptly.
Yeah, and now they head into closing arguments, and you kind of step back and you think, like, what is the defense of this case? And like one of the questions that we've talked about, and it's come up a lot, is like, why does he have a knife? at a track meet. And it seems like, just based off this police officer, and I believe the blade was 5.5 inches or more, then that would be a weapon you're not allowed to have. The blade in this situation, I think, was 3.5 inches. And it seems like, just from this testimony, that the argument about, it's not necessarily like, oh, well, he had a blade at a track meet, and most people have said that they don't think that a blade should be at a track meet. It's
interesting. We're talking about the blade again. But do you guys see these pictures that they're doing for like what's going on inside the courtroom? I wonder how much of that let me back it up. I wonder how accurate this is right here. Like, is this like one of the surveillance footages and this is the other, or if they just threw something up there that was close enough and then kind of just moved on? Don't know. But
about it, Chris, and we talked about this previously, it was never addressed as to why it was there. I mean, they could have thrown out, maybe he liked to camp. Maybe he had a job outside of work to where, he lawfully had a knife on him. They did not even address that, which I thought was a major loss for the defense. Tell us why this knife was there. We know he used it. We know he made a terrible mistake and it ended in this horrible tragedy. But I felt like addressing why the knife was even there would have been, beneficial to them. But they, of course, missed that opportunity here. And, all that officer did was pretty much say it's not criminal to have a knife that's under 5.5 inches. So
that's all you need. Officer says it's not criminal to have it. Let's move on. So what? All right. If it was criminal, that's probably why the defense didn't use it or go into it. Because it's like, oh, well, it's not criminal, then who cares? Now, if it was criminal, then that's a different scenario. But yeah.
Again, he was only on the stand for a few minutes, Chris. I don't know how much that impacted the jury, how they're going to, take that into deliberations. But here we are. They're going to have that case tomorrow.
I know we talked early on in the state's case. And
all right, I'm going to stop it right there. We're going to move on. I want to talk about Amazing Lucas's video. I saw that. I got that waiting in the wings here. Because I know he's going to have some stuff to say about this. I might have to stop sharing and then do it again. Yeah. All right. So we'll do Amazing
This digital calendar.
Get on with the ads.
And now we play the waiting game.
I forgot Amazing Lucas's.
Oh my goodness.
There we go. Let's get him on a more pleasant pause. I forgot his stance on this. Amazing Lucas, I like his content in the sense of how he delivers it and talks about things. But Lucas is like a contrarian. Like whatever the latest thing is, he'll just talk against it. Like, oh, and he'll contradict himself too. It's pretty interesting. Mildly aggravating, infuriating. It was like in 1 minute it'll be like, oh, he'll call something out, and then another minute it'll be like, like two videos later he'll be like on the side that he just got done calling out. It's like, do you know you just did that? But I don't know. But anyway, let's see what Amazing Lucas has to say, because usually his facts are right. Now his interpretation may be off, but his facts are generally correct. But yeah, here we go.
So let me just say, first things first, I've been permanently suspended on X. I applied an appeal, but the reason for my suspension is that I defended Karmelo Anthony. I kid you not.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, okay. So this is a pro Karmelo Anthony guy. But Lucas does talk about racism and stuff. So I can definitely see him being a pro Karmelo Anthony guy, but I'll let him cook.
Essentially said what I said here is that, hey, don't put hands on people. That's what people need to teach their kids. And maybe this whole scenario would have been avoided. X flagged that as violent speech, mind you. Violent speech. They told me to remove the post. I removed the post. Then they still suspend my account. I've applied for appeal, but y'all know how that goes. So we'll see what happens. I'm creating a new account. That being said, when it comes to this case, this case has been just I don't know, overwhelmed and flooded with misinformation.
Yep, and that's why I'm on the internet doing this, because again, like you try to type in the videos from like a year ago, like you can barely find anything. Like, and again, I'm not saying that YouTube is trying to purposely keep this quiet, but I wouldn't doubt it. But it could just be like, hey, let's keep our servers clean-ish on certain topics to allow bandwidth. But I don't know. I'm still one of those people who thinks that all this stuff is being archived somewhere. But anyway.
I mean, it's typical of any case when there's a black person, a white person in here. We saw this with Ahmaud Arbery, if you all remember, when they were saying, oh, he had a hammer in his pocket and everything, and he was robbing the place and stuff like that. But when it comes to this case, I feel that this is the prosecution's case to lose.
Damn.
And what I mean by that is that I haven't come across any information or any evidence or any testimony that really is the nail in the coffin. By that same statement, I think the prosecution, they may not have much of the facts, but they got the sizzle. And from what I've been hearing, because I've listened to other people who've gone to the cases, there are a lot of black women who are following this case, and many of them are just saying, hey, they're making emotional arguments here. They're putting on a show for the jury. There was one scenario.
Oh, so that means that they're on the internet too. That's what I really think is going on here for the prosecution. Because again, for a prosecution to make their claim, the defense to counter it, and then the prosecution to not rebut, that's very telling to me. Again, after watching Ahmaud Arbery, after watching Karen Reed, after watching the Johnny Depp trial, that's very interesting that the defense will counter stuff and then the prosecution will just go quiet. Say, we're being lied to about this trial. Like this isn't Karmelo Anthony's a cold-blooded killer. This isn't as open and shut as they're trying to make it sound. But
when they were asking, I believe the autopsy specialist, whatnot, but the prosecution was like, hey, in victim scenarios, don't they usually have their hands up like this when there's a weapon? And the person was like, yeah, that's usually what happens. And was Austin, did he have his hands up like that? He's like, no, that did not, from my understanding, did not have his hands up in that position. And he turns to the jury and is like, that's because he never saw it coming.
Damn.
And, that's powerful, right? That may not be truthful, of course, but that's powerful. That's emotional manipulation. That is what's going on. So from what I've heard of the defense, of the prosecution has a bunch of sizzle. They have no stake, right? They have no facts. When you look at the witnesses that are coming on, all of them are being untruthful, okay? I would go so far as to say lied. And the reason why I'm saying that, it's not because I'm just pulling it out, out my butt. It's because there was one point in time where it was this friend of Karmelo. I believe his name was Eddie. And this kid was trying to act like he didn't know Karmelo. It was very much like, how they, denied knowing Jesus. I don't know the man. That's what he was doing, right? He was saying, I don't really know Karmelo like that. Like we hang out sometimes. And the defense was like, you want to act like you don't know this kid? Y'all didn't have like a double date at one time? Y'all weren't friends before this event? Y'all didn't hang out, prior?
That's new information. I never knew that. I mean, he may add that detail, but double dating. But I also wanted to stop and say, yeah, there are people who do lie on the stand, by the way. I mean, go look up the Karen Reed trial. Like, the amount of perjury that you have to sit through in that trial is ridiculous. Now, again, how it goes is, like in the Karen Reed trial, for instance, yet they're trying to prove Karen Reed guilty of murder. So despite the fact that people were obviously lying about other things, that's not what the case was about. Therefore, I see why they didn't get in trouble. But the fact that you could easily catch them up in lies on the stand, a lot of people should have been arrested in that trial. But yeah, you can be dishonest on the stand, aka lying by omission, and you may not get in trouble for it. But there's a lot of reasons for getting underage minors to do that, because nobody wants to go to jail too. Nobody wants to be an accomplice for murder. Nobody wants to have blood on their hands. So there is incentive to lie for and against Karmelo in this. So this is why witness testimony doesn't really mean anything completely. Like it helps put the story together, and thank God there's surveillance footage and camera and cell phone footage. But yeah, this is why eyewitness testimony is never the smoking gun or the nail in the coffin that they always try to make it sound like.
Prior to this, y'all weren't, buddies like that? And this kid was like, nah, not really. The defense shows him a picture of them hanging out, right? Shows him a picture of, them being buddies. And the kid is like, oh, okay, now, yeah, I think I remember. Yeah. So it's clear that these witnesses are lying. They're all saying that, I had multiple witnesses say that, oh, yeah, it was Karmelo who tried to initiate the fight. It was Karmelo who said, I forgot, it was something so ludicrous. And he was like, y'all are, P words and everything. Y'all gonna do anything. I'm not moving, F you and all this, right? And it's like, let me get this straight. Now, albeit this is a witness. Do I think it's a credible witness? No, because it doesn't make any sense, and it's not coherent with other people and what they have said. But mind you, this is what the prosecution witnesses have been saying. So after you hear this so many times, it's an all-white jury. If you don't think the all-white jury in Texas is going to be racially prejudiced, I don't know what to tell you. You're a better person than I am in the faith of humanity.
Come on now, dog.
I mildly agree with that, but you know.
So when they hear someone,
Which that's also another thing. Whenever black people get off in scenarios where we normally don't get off, that should really cause people pause, right? Like you should really assess, okay, is this person really guilty of what you think they're guilty of? Or do you just want them to be guilty? Right? Anyway, go ahead and cook, Lucas.
fit the typical black, the black criminal narrative. Oh, he was aggressive. He was hostile. Oh, he said F you. He's not doing anything. Oh, he was intransigent. Oh, that fits the bill. Now, the reason why I say that that's foolishness, and it's very difficult for anyone with an IQ above room temperature to believe, is because Karmelo is 5'8", right? Usually, right? Typically, 5'8" people, all right, who are track stars do not pick fights with 6'1", 200+ linebackers. All right.
Yeah, that's another thing. In self-defense cases, the person's size who is attacked or looked at as the aggressor and who's looked at as the victim or the defender is always taken into account. Okay, so the fact that the Metcalf twins were bigger than Karmelo by significant size, that is taken into account and a part of the legal process, believe it or not. So if they ganged up on him or surrounded him and he thought he was in fear for his life, you can think what you want, but that actually is justifiable use of force. And a lot of people don't like that because they want Karmelo to be guilty because, black fatigue, et cetera, and so forth. But in that scenario, Karmelo could have an issue of self-defense. And again, I don't think Karmelo looks at it that way from himself, which is why when he was pulled over or arrested by the officer, he said, "Do I have his?" He's like, "This is self-defense, right?" He was probably just trying to make sure that hey, they're picking on me, and me striking back is self-defense. But I said that in my other video a little bit.
That's not what happens. So to try and act like Karmelo's the one that instigated the fight, that Karmelo's the one that wanted to get into this brawl, is ludicrous. It's nonsensical. In addition to that, it contradicts their testimony because many of the kids at the time, and the defense even brought this up, was like, hey, you said that it was a Metcalf who was the aggressor. You said that it was Metcalf who was going to be intimidated. And every single time, the defense attorney had to remind them of their sworn statements that they had relayed to police at the time. So what they are saying on trial, on the stand, is night and day from what they had testified to previously, to what they had sworn to officers, law enforcement, previously. Now, that being said, I get it, all right? What you have to take into account, these are all kids, bruh. They all have to go back to school. With who? The brother, right? Of the slain football player.
Yeah, see, like I said, the eyewitnesses have a reason to lie, right? Because think about it that way. If Karmelo goes to jail, you have to go back and know that you put someone in jail who may or may not have been guilty, right? Or just like you said, for the people who went to school with Austin's brother, I forget his name off top right now. Right, you got to go back to school with him, and his brother's killer is either free or not free. Or if you're on Karmelo, if you go to Karmelo school, it's like, hey, Karmelo's not here no more, and I'm part of the reason why. And if he's guilty, then okay. But if he's not guilty, then everyone's going to know that he's in jail because of me. And then now I got to face backlash to that when I walk around the school. I may have to transfer, right? So again, that just goes into the kids do have incentive to lie. So saying that a witness got up there and said X, Y, and Z, case closed, we're done with this, that's very ignorant and naive.
That's who they have to go back to school with, right? So obviously, when it comes to politics in schools, you obviously don't want to be the person who gets, the alleged, murderer off, right? You don't want to be labeled as that kid going back to school with all these kids that you're all buddy-buddy with. That's what you have to understand. So I get that dynamic of them lying on the stand and contradicting their statements at the time. In addition to that, you had one of the witnesses' defense come up and it's like, hey, Austin Metcalf said, I'm going to beat your ASA.
Also on that same front, eyewitness testimony, the closer to the event that it is, the more accurate it is. So like whatever their statements were, whenever the arresting officer was there or the responding officers start taking eyewitness testimony, that should actually be viewed as more truthful than if then whatever it is that they say later may be a trial. Because, by trial, attorneys have gone in there, they've coached the kids on what to say, what not to say, how not to perjure yourself, et cetera, and so forth.
Yes, if you don't move, something to that effect. So we can clearly see that Metcalf was the aggressor. Metcalf traveled 5 benches to go to Karmelo Anthony. That's what he did. He was clearly the aggressor. Now, when it comes to self-defense, when it comes to the knife and everything, I mean, that's where I think, in my opinion, based off of other people's accounts, I think that's where the defense is losing it, because the prosecution is pulling the heartstrings, right? They're like, hey, we need the family to leave, when they show pictures of like the heart and, the wounds and everything. When they're playing, the video, you're having the family cry and go, oh, and obviously a juror, unless you're cold-hearted, right? A juror seeing a family cry and, the mother mourning their son and everything, obviously that is pulling on their heartstrings. So the emotional appeal of this story, I think, outweighs the prosecution's actual evidence, actual facts on the matter to prove, that Karmelo did this and he intended to absolutely, vanquish, Metcalf. And I just haven't come across any testimony or the defense trying to say that, hey, this was, it wasn't intentional to the chest, right? Could this have been just a spur of the moment? I think they brought this up when it came to the knife and how it wasn't fully open and how it wasn't easy to open.
So the headline, I think, of when we talk about the weapon in this case, was the fact that it was a folding knife that was not completely folded. It was maybe at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
And it's got a locking mechanism, and they took the jury through what that means. And I think what I took away from that was that Karmelo Anthony probably didn't have this weapon in position to utilize it during this confrontation, meaning that it was more emotional, meaning he was potentially fumbling for it. He had a cut on his finger.
It wasn't locked.
It wasn't locked. So I felt like that really supported maybe self-defense, maybe manslaughter.
So that means to go that it was more of a panic as opposed to like, let's rumble, let's get this on. So I
which that contradicts all the narratives about how he went there to kill. He did it on purpose, right? Like, here you go. You have a guy who sit here and said that Karmelo had a cut on his hand prior from digging from the knife, right? And it's like, see, again, just more comment section narratives being debunked. Now, I'm not saying Lucas is saying this. This is the guy in the video who was actually at the trial. So always consider your source, but yeah.
I don't know if the defense's arguments were convincing enough to overlook or to, I guess, supersede the emotional, baggage that the prosecution came with. I don't know. Because you know how people are. You hear cries, you hear tears and everything. Now, that being said, they also showed Karmelo Anthony, who was tearful, who was remorseful, and who was crying. He's like, I told him not to do that. So it also goes to show that, hey, he wasn't intentionally trying to yeet this kid. That's not what he was trying to do. He was trying to defend himself. Now, whether or not the jury hears that, whether or not the jury hearing a black boy cry or be remorseful, whether or not that falls onto their hearts, unlikely. Okay, I'm not even gonna say I don't know. I'm gonna say it's unlikely. This is an all-white jury. If it had maybe been one black person or one brown person, they can maybe say, well, see, it was him. It was him. I didn't do it. But this is an all-white jury. And this all-white jury lives in this area. They're gonna have to face the other white people in that area, okay? And how white people, especially racist white people, treat who they believe are race traitors, okay, they do not treat them very favorably. So these white people on this jury, they'll have to leave the country. They'll have to.
Not necessarily. They'll probably just move towns. But even that's kind of that's neither here nor there. But I mean, yeah, but no. He said like there's no black people on the jury. There's like an Asian lady I think I saw in jury selection, right? Is that what they said? Anyway.
At least leave the state, leave the city. They'll probably have to leave the state because word travels pretty fast. You have to understand the dynamics here. You have kids who have to go back to school with Metcalf. You have a jury who has to go back home, all right, around other racist white people. It's not in Karmelo's favor, in my opinion. I think the facts are in Karmelo's favor, but the emotional, pleas, the emotional arguments, it's just, I think it may be too powerful to beat. But I don't know. He may be acquitted. There may be one righteous white person on the jury who's like, nah, I think it was self-defense. Karmelo's 5'8". This guy's a linebacker. He's 200 pounds. He pushed him, because they go and say that it was more of I forgot the word, the linebacker push, whatever.
The push. We have demonstrations happening on the open, inside the courtroom, right in the middle. Let's talk about those demonstrations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the.
This is interesting. I would like to understand. This is why I want to see the video personally, just because like what happened? Like what? Was he mugged? Was he surrounded? What?
No, I'm not sure that the prosecution expected this, because they did have one of the witnesses said it wasn't just a push. It was, he lifted him up in like a linebacker drill type, like when you see a linebacker, hit the dummies. And so
if that's true, this is 100% self-defense. They hemmed him up and lifted him off the ground, yeah. And again, like I said, Karmelo stabbed him one time. This wasn't like, a horror movie where it's like he stabbed him, got him on the ground, stabbed him. Like, no, like this was just like a one-hit punch and then left. Like, and again, Karmelo's not trained in any martial arts. I'm pretty sure that would have come out by now if he was. It's just, so we can't really sit here and say like, oh, he just had the aim of a, super trained martial artist.
that's what he said.
So it wasn't a light shove. And that's why it's just, it gets tiring just hearing, the prosecution witnesses just lie like this. Just lie. Constantly contradicting their statements, their sworn statements that they gave to law enforcement. And then when the defense brings on their witnesses, the witnesses are saying, well, no, I think it was more of a shove. I saw two hands and everything. So it's whether or not the jury can see that the witnesses are lying or being untruthful or trying to cover for Metcalf, I don't know. I don't see Karmelo beating this case just simply due to the facts that I laid out. Because the facts are all lining up that this was very much self-defense. But we will see. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know.
All right. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to let him finish. Just going to kind of wrap up. But let's head to the comment section. Thought the X platform. You can use the N word and threaten people's lives on X, but if you say the white man is wrong, suspend it. There's some truth to that, sadly. That statement must have made Elon mad. The trial is moving faster than I thought. Yeah, I'll go ahead and like that one. X will suspend you for saying what you said, but will leave the most racist. Yeah, that is true. This is also why I don't really kind of care about certain comments, like when it comes to free speech and stuff like that. Like me, I'm a free speech advocate. Like leave all the racist stuff up there, because to me, that's receipts. That's receipts. That's all of the racism is only here because you guys won't let it go. It's like, I'm sorry. Like, I mean, do we have to click on some of these people? Like, here, let's do it. Let's see. Let's find a racist comment and then see what demographic it belongs to. To tell violent people their behavior is rooted in hate is to say that rain falls from the sky. Whatever. Pressure Carmelo and his family. Court cases are just marketing. Yeah, that's not totally inaccurate. He's out of line, but he's right. If you're an Amazing Lucas fan, you'll get that reference. How is that going to suspend your account for that? But I've seen the same platform. Actually, the same platform, a man sticking his fist up a woman's a-hole, literally. What are we doing here? Yep, that is X. If you go on X, you can legitimately see porn and graphic material without with like zero warning. Anyway, or repercussions for the accounts. I wish this case was live streamed just so we can see the whole trial. Yes, sir. I don't care who you got to go back to school with. Truth is the truth. Yeah, that is true. If I saw, I'll tell them the court. Yeah, don't start now. Won't be 9. I thought people can be held in contempt of court for perjuring themselves. That's a really tricky one. That's a tricky one. See, not if you're bleached. Elon Stock. Carmelo's parents should have pressed charges for being aggressed by this monster. Spot on about the jurors and where they live. They're going to be scared if they quit. His attorney should have requested the trial be moved out of Texas because he won't get a fair trial. I would say he wouldn't. It wouldn't matter. I mean, it's be tried by people who aren't from America. Like you'd have to have the trial in like, I don't know. I wouldn't even say Canada or Mexico. I'd say like you probably have to just leave the United, like North America. His attorney to your children's better. They have to flee to Mexico. Yeah, I'll say Mexico. Yeah, maybe. Batson v. mistrial flag rigged jury. Rigged juries do happen. I don't think that's really that common though. For some reason, I believe he's going to be acquitted. However, this is not. Yeah. Kamara to take the stand too. I don't know about that. I don't know if Carmelo should take the stand. Let's just keep going here. Not only was Mike Tapage an aggressor, he was his identical twin brother. All the witnesses are lying. I wouldn't say all of them. Wish the best. Yeah, this is Lucas's video, so we're probably not going to get too much on here. X is the Aryan Brotherhood. Anyway, okay. I'm probably just gonna leave that there. Interesting. So, yeah. Shout out to Amazing Lucas. Check out his video. You guys see the title, and I put the other link in the description box. Actually, here I think I can do the same thing here. But yeah, so go check out Lucas's video. I'll put that in the description if I can. Yeah, here we go. Say Amazing Lucas video. I'm doing it live. So there's Amazing Lucas's video. I clicked off the other one. Sorry, I don't know where it's at. But check out Amazing Lucas in his content if you care. That's going to be it for me. I found a Matt Walsh video I'm going to react to when I have more energy and clarity of mind, because he goes into a bunch of nonsense with some of his rhetoric.
And now we play the waiting game.
Wait, did I just react to this? Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about Matt Walsh's video, but I only saw like the first couple of minutes of it. I might react to more of it, but again, it's just comment section talking point after comment section talking point. And now that I've got a couple of videos out addressing what actually happened and what's actually going on in the courtroom, you guys can see how a lot of these narratives are just promoted to incite race. And from the people who sit here and say that, oh, they're not the racists, it's the other people who are racist. It's like you are literally making up things so that the black guy is guilty. Like that is 100% post-slavery 1870s style like behavior. Like I don't understand how y'all don't see this. Well, I mean, I do understand how they don't see this, but it's like I don't understand, right? So Anyway, I'll respond to some of that. I'm not gonna respond to the whole thing. The video's an hour long. I'm probably gonna respond like the first third of it, if even that. If I can even get through it, I don't know. I'll probably just go to I can't, because the way my brain works is once you've given me too many contradictions, I just can't with you. So anyway, that's my video. This is John's opinion. Take it or leave it. All right. See y'all later.